Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Turning Transition into Transformation, a strategy for effective last mile solutions. My name is Kelly Diasis, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. Joining us are two incredible experts, Aaron Geiger, Managing Director of Consumer Goods, and Scott McWilliams, Managing Director of Wholesale Distribution. They'll guide us through today's session, sharing their insights and strategies to transform last mile challenges into opportunities for innovation and growth. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we dive in. Today's session will be approximately 30 minutes. We encourage you to ask questions. You'll notice a Q&A box on your screen. Feel free to type your questions there at any time during the presentation. We'll address them during the dedicated Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. Also, a recording will be made available to you after the webinar. Now, without further ado, let me hand it over to Aaron Geiger, who will kick things off. Aaron, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, so just a little background on myself. As Kelly mentioned, I'm Aaron Geiger, so I'm Managing Director of Consumer Goods for ORTEC, and I've been with the company since 2007 now. I've been in software in general for about 25 years now, and my role here is really to assist companies in making informed decisions on supply chain technology to help drive savings as well as efficiencies. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies over my tenure here, and using that knowledge that I've gained from them and that insights, I can help drive conversations with companies looking at technology today. Scott?
Great, thanks, Aaron. Scott McWilliams, Managing Director for our Wholesale Distribution channel. So I have about 25 plus years experience in transportation logistics, both in sales-related roles and managerial roles. About 10 of those years have been in last mile optimization software. And really, I view my role as being to really taking this consultative approach to helping our food service distribution customers and companies really to take a look at what are their operational problems and issues and ways that we can help. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to you, Aaron.
Great, thanks, Scott. So as Kelly mentioned, the title of the webinar is Turning Transition into Transformation, a strategy for effective last mile solutions. And Scott and I thought this would be an interesting topic. There have been so many changes in last mile delivery, not just in general, but especially in food service over the last 10, 15 years, and thought we should address, what new technologies are out there to help address today's issues. So what are the capabilities of legacy solutions that have been around for decades versus current technology? And, why might it be important to consider a transition to help, address some of the challenges and pain points that we have in last mile today? So Scott and I are really going to be focused on 4 key areas, and then we'll have some sub areas within there. And it really is driven from questions we typically get asked the most from prospects and customers. And then we'll open it up to some questions at the end. Hopefully we'll have some time for that. So let's go ahead and dive in. But Scott, we can just kick things off with, what are you seeing out there in general, as far as the new challenges in last mile delivery that either weren't there or maybe weren't as prevalent as they were 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. So, and really taking a look at, sort of where things are today. And I don't know that anybody would disagree with this, increased customer expectations. So, Amazon, as everybody likes to call it, the Amazon-like experience. I want to know as soon as I order something, give me a time immediately when I'm going to expect it, where it is along its route, and what's going to happen with it, and then notify me once it's there. So that is really what happens throughout the course of what customers want, what they want to know. Real-time order updates, tell me when I'm going to get it. Tell me if it's late, tell me if it's delayed. So there's this constant feed of information that customers expect to receive about where their stuff is. The bottom line is, a lot of these people, and especially in food service distribution, it's not like it's they only go to one place. It's like, if you can't do it, someone else will. I can call the other guy and I can get food from them too. So servicing customers, and having these tools to be able to serve them with how they expect to be notified is very, very important today. So the second thing is really, from a complexity of orders, every day, there's more SKUs equal more choices. More choices mean more things in the warehouse, more things I've got to pull, more things I have to be able to account for. How am I going to load it on my truck? How am I going to get it there? What compartment does it need to be in? How might I need to separate, frozen from cold or from dry goods? Can I mix certain things together? So, there's always that complexity issue that carriers are often trying to sort out. And, and then really to even make it, even a little bit more complex is, this adherence to the Food Safety Modernization Act. Anybody who's in food service distribution, they have to adhere to the same rules about, how do I transport the goods? Do I have to monitor the temperatures of certain goods? And what do I need to do to let my customers know, did I maintain proper temperatures for something in case something happens, down the road? I think it's in the news a lot today, a lot of foodborne illnesses, and then having that traceability is very, very important today to figure out where did the problem occur. So those are just a couple of the things there. Rising operational costs. You don't talk to anybody today in this space or in transportation that doesn't talk about it. So post-COVID inflation, eventually we're going to get to the place where we're going to stop saying post-COVID. So, in essence here, really what we're saying is that, inflation, in a very short period of time, you had hit unprecedented levels, unlike anything that we've seen ever before in the United States, actually in the world for that matter. So inflation increased very quickly. A lot of people in the food distribution business had to pivot some of their business model very, very quickly. So inflation is a real thing. So fixed costs, have a major impact. Your fixed and your variable costs. Labor making up 50% of your overall expense line. Labor over the last couple of years has increased probably, anywhere from 10% on the low end to 30% plus on the high end. Fuel, same thing. That's usually your second largest line item, and then equipment behind that. So each of these different groups have seen significant inflationary pressures, and our customer base the customer base is saying, how do I adjust to this? We're already in a low margin business. So what do we need to do within these operational costs? How do we adjust for that? And how much of it can we pass along?
Yeah, Scott, just to add on to that, I'd read a stat the other day that said between 2024 and 2030 that we're expecting to see on average a 9.1% increase in operational costs per year moving forward. So I think, we're just going to have to get more and more efficient given those incurred costs that we're going to be seeing here over the next few years.
Yeah. Anything that customers can do to eke out, another 1%, 2% efficiency gain, everybody's looking for a way to do it for sure. And then from a sustainability standpoint, what are ways that, customers are, what are ways that we can reduce our carbon footprint? Is that, do we need more modern equipment? Is there ways we can find to be more efficient? Of course, California has, enacted rules to say, hey, every vehicle on the road by, I think it's 2035 has got to be electric. Well, that's all good and well, but does that really, what impact is that going to have on terms of even coming back up to your operational costs? Can we put solar on the roof to help power the building? So there's a lot of different ways that people are looking for, to help in the sustainability department.
Yeah, and Scott, I don't know how you feel about the sustainability thing, but if you look back 10, 15 years, I think it was really a big topic with a lot of companies that, at least that I felt I worked with. And, and then it went on a lull maybe for about 10 years. And I think, over the past few years, it's really gotten more and more prominent. You've got chief sustainability officers now, you've got budgets just for sustainability. So I've actually seen companies try to take advantage of some of that money that's in sustainability buckets to help with supply chain initiatives too. So pretty interesting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in a lot of places, there's, tax breaks, government subsidies, things like that to help with these sustainability type initiatives. Hey, buy this piece of equipment that's more efficient, it uses less electricity, uses less, natural, whatever that may be. So, lots of different options there for sure. And then technological advancements. AI is the big buzzword of the day. It has been for quite a while. So AI is evolving daily. My opinion is we've only just scratched the surface of AI, even though it's been around for a couple of years. I think it will continue to evolve. I don't think we even fully understand today what impacts it's going to be able to have down the road. What parts of our business is it going to be involved in that maybe it's not today? How will that technology continue to evolve? So, but that is something we're starting to see a lot more of as time goes on here. Machine learning, again, this has been around a little bit longer. So this is just a way of just taking data that's being collected and having, instead of having somebody try to look through sort of patterns and understand sort of what's happening, it can actually go through and look at data and crunch things and say, hey, I'm starting to see these patterns develop, and maybe there's a better way to do it without having to have a human take a look at it and do the analysis behind it. So we are starting to see a lot of that as well. And then automation of manual tasks and processes. This really comes back into the machine learning process. What are things that we can do to take what a human has to touch today, and it takes time? What is other ways that we can automate some of these more manual processes, not completely remove the human element, but what are ways that we can take these manual tasks that are sort of redundant, sort of rote things, and how can we take them and make them a little bit more automated?
Great. All right, we'll move to the next one here. But just to remind the audience, if you have any questions as we go through these 4 areas, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to hit them at the end here. But getting on to the next topic, Scott, what do you feel some of the shortcomings are, with what we're calling legacy solutions that have been around, the last 15, 20 years in some cases, being able to handle some of the new, challenges that you just described?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say probably one of the biggest things is data and the entry of data. Manual data entry, again, it requires human intervention and it takes time. Well, in today's more automated world, anything we could do to have things speed up and have things be in an automated process rather than have a manual touch point, that's always a big key item that a lot of companies are looking at. Hey, rather than having a manual import of orders, can't we have orders as they come in be automatically fed over into a routing system and have them automatically routed based upon constraints? Things like that. Then lack of real-time updates. Again, knowing what's going on and when it's going on, what's happening, and then being able to adjust to those things today. Sometimes these systems are not interconnected with, hey, here's what's going on out in the field sort of real time versus here's what I need to take care of from a customer service standpoint. We need to have more real-time updates to say, here's what's happening and here's how I need to adjust to what's going on. From a technical constraint standpoint, here what we're looking at is older legacy systems, written in older software. Sometimes the software stacks that are, or the tech stacks that are in place, they don't talk well to each other. So sometimes there's limited integrations between a modern CRM and an ERP. With some of these more legacy systems as well. And then sometimes, and I think this gets overlooked, is subject to your operating system limitation and obsolescence. If Microsoft decides they're going to deprecate a certain version that you're running on, well, guess what? Maybe your software that you have that's running a system all of a sudden does not work any longer because Microsoft has decided to deprecate it. So that's just kind of an example of, older software doesn't last forever. Like anything else, there's a planned obsolescence. So I think, taking those things into account, certainly is a consideration. Again, turnover knowledge loss. So really taking a look at the impact of, I have people on staff who know how to use a system, and a person retires or somebody decides to leave and go to the next guy down the street. They offer them better money, whatever the case may be. So being able to account for that employee turnover and that knowledge loss or brain drain, as they call it, how can we, how does our technology continue to grow and evolve that we have to have somebody who understood those legacy systems and is now gone? And that kind of comes right over into the next point here is training. What are the challenges with training? Do we still have training available for older legacy systems, or is it easier to train on a new modern system that's out there today? That's a little bit more, I kind of call it user friendly, rather than sort of keystroke based, but really click based, things like that. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then the last thing here is really kind of data quality challenges. So, data is king, and there's a lot of conversations that are had with, a lot of customers, and it doesn't matter what your market segment is or what your business is. The first question is, how accurate is your data? And sometimes you get a blank stare, or sometimes you get a, hey, it's really good. And sometimes you get a, hey, we know it's terrible. So, having these data quality challenges, whether it's inaccurate or incomplete. Older legacy systems, sometimes people just aren't responsible for cleaning up old data. What customers have left? What customers have left, a lot of times they stay in the database and they never get cleaned out. So knowing who's who and are they real, are they not? The new customers go in pretty easy. Getting the old ones out, a lot of times that maintenance is never done. And then really from a data quality standpoint, limited analytics capabilities. So what vision do we have in pulling data out of a database and making sense of what that data means in terms of running our business and our operation? Are we extracting it from a database and pumping it into our own BI tool? Is there a system within your legacy system that is specific to just what you're using that tool for? So we do see that there are very limited analytics capabilities with some of the older systems as well. So, Aaron, I'm gonna turn this question over to you. So, what is it in your experience that do you see that kind of what sets sort of these modern systems apart from some of the legacy systems? What are some of those keys?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a bit to unpack here. So let's spend a little time on this. But I think it really starts with better user integrations and kind of sub bullet of that, unified data platforms. So no longer are you have to follow kind of the methodology of legacy solutions where you're pulling in orders from a TMS, or maybe it's an ERP system to optimize routes and capacities, for example. That's great at the time, but we've found that there's a lot of valuable data in disparate systems that can help with the efficiencies of our route plans, right? So you can do things like integrate with production planning solutions and ensure that an ATP check, or even trigger an ATP check before we release a route, just to make sure we have the right product available to go out. You can integrate with things like yard management solutions, so you can see what equipment's on the yard in each location before you plan the routes. Because if you're planning for all 53-foot dry vans and you've got to mix in some 48 footers, you have to have that information available, or it's going to lead to cut orders, bad customer service. There's a lot of domino effect from things like that. We can also push information out that can help with other solutions. So WMS solution, it really drives the picking of the product and the loading of the truck. So we can push those routes down to the WM, so it has the right information to do that piece efficiently in the warehouse. And then, from a resource perspective, we can integrate with scheduling solutions. For example, we can see what available employees We have what are their skill sets, how many working hours do they have left that week, and that keeps us from paying overtime or potentially incurring DOT fines as well. Moving on to API connectivity. So in the past, older technologies, they had different programming languages and they just weren't meant to talk to each other. So you had to put in these comprehensive integrations. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of time, probably the most time spent in any type of implementation. And it's very risky. And, a lot of times it was a security risk. So with APIs now, we have more of an opportunity to standardize the data. We've got an efficient tunnel between disparate applications. And they're essentially plug and play. There's thousands of them out there. They're quick, they're seamless, and they're also a lot more secure than prior integration methods. So taking advantage of that piece. And then data standardization. So you already talked about it, but data, it's the cornerstone as far as getting effective optimization results, especially. So getting it as accurate as possible from the beginning should be a top priority. No company I've ever worked with had perfect data. It's not a reality. But with legacy solutions, you really didn't know until it was too late. You'd already sent the routes out. You'd gotten maybe some feedback. You had to rebuild something in the warehouse, for example. But there's now technology in more modern solutions to be able to use AI and machine learning, and you'll hear us mention that a lot today, that allow you to identify outliers in the data automatically. It'll be scanning constantly, looking for things that just don't make sense and alerting those to you and suggesting that you make a change. So, you can ensure there's no inaccuracies taken into account when you're doing your planning moving forward. All right, so predictive analytics, lots of analytics out there now, but I think now you're able to move away from the legacy solution approach of planning today for tomorrow and subsequently just not knowing what's actually happening in your routes. You might be able to get feedback from a driver saying something didn't work or, pallets weren't stacked right, something to that effect. But instead of just focusing on the day-to-day operations, which companies have done for, years and years, you can utilize AI and machine learning to see potential issues well in advance, and you can put contingency plans in place. Say, if it's certain times of the year, we have to watch out for weather, or we have supplier issues, or there's traffic patterns at certain times of the day. So we can preemptively plan for those types of things with the predictive analytics. And this is going to lead to, better performance in your overall operations. And I'll just use a quick example of something I talked about the other day, stop times. So it can be applied for drive times as well. But for stop times, you see a lot of companies that use the static, 15, 30, 45-minute stop time, depending on if it's, maybe a gas station delivery versus a grocery store, something to that effect. But you really don't know if that's completely accurate or not. So what you can do is you have, modern technology now, again, AI machine learning that can go back and it can look across the last, say 12 months of data. And you can see that customer A, maybe they're actually 21 minutes and not 15 minutes. Customer B is 28 minutes. And so you have this information to then plug back into the daily routing solution, your operational solution, to get more and more efficient over time. And, the last thing I'll mention here just quickly, demand forecasting. So again, just being able to generally analyze trends, looking at things like seasonality, et cetera. Companies can, do a lot around optimizing inventory levels. You can also reduce, stock outs, excess inventory, et cetera. So there's a lot that you can do today with the modern systems in that predictive analytics area.
Oh, great points there, Aaron.
All right, so advanced route planning. We'll start with strategic routing. Strategic routing is nothing new for probably anyone on this call. It is still as relevant as it's ever been in creating those efficient territories, your visit days, and ultimately your static routes, which are then going to feed into your daily solution. The problem is that a lot of companies were only doing these big re-engineering. So if we had new customers coming in, hopefully more than are going out, they're only doing these re-engineerings once a quarter. So that can drive a lot of inefficiencies if you're not addressing them over the course of multiple months.
Yeah, and I think that's probably if you're lucky, they're doing them once a quarter.
Yeah, we see
A lot of
biannually
times
all the
once a
time as
year.
well. Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I get why. I totally understand it. I think we all do that, have seen these re-engineerings in practice. I mean, it takes hundreds of hours in some cases. It takes multiple head counts, and you're doing them whether you really know if you need to or not. So, with more of the modern solutions, you can proactively recognize things trending in the wrong direction before they're big problems to the company, right? So, for example, if deliveries are being missed in a certain geography on a consistent basis over the last 6 months, the solutions can send an alert to you to tell you what's going on, and also even go as far as suggesting a fix for it. Maybe it's going to, say you need to try a vehicle that has more capacity for this certain geography, higher drop sizes, maybe drops on days where we typically have more capacity. So no longer do you have to do these massive re-engineerings. You can do very small re-engineerings, and the solution is going to tell you when and how to do those. So I think that's a huge advantage when you're looking at strategic routing solutions that are kind of more modern day.
Where
So
does
getting
dynamic
into
where does dynamic routing fit into all this today, Aaron, versus the typical static type routing?
Yeah, so dynamic, it's again, I don't think it's going to be anything new for the group here, but it's taking that next step, right? So it's taking the static routes, it's going to be taking the daily volumes and orders, and it's going to take in a large variety of parameters, business rules, restrictions, vehicle capabilities, skill sets, time windows, capacities, all these different things, and it's going to build the right route sequence on that static route for the day for whatever's needed. So no big surprises there. I think what the big change is with modern solutions is that instead of having these manual session-based plans, you can now automate a good portion of the route planning, right? So you're going to hear a lot about probably the next year or two what's called manage by exception. So this means that the solution it can automatically produce an optimized route plan if it meets predefined thresholds that each company defines. So in implementations, you want to pull in all your subject matter experts, your planners, you want to get all this tribal knowledge out of their head and into more of a rules-based solution. So when it does the optimization, as long as you're checking the boxes on those different requirements, it will automatically plan and release the routes. You're always going to have the unplanables, though, as everyone knows. There's always stuff that comes up. So you do need your planners, but you want to just really avoid a substantial amount of the tribal knowledge needed to plan routes with modern solutions. Like you'd mentioned earlier, Scott, if you lose a planner that's got all this experience and someone new comes in that just doesn't have the skill set, your routes can look completely different from one person to another based on that years of experience, that tribal knowledge. So we're trying to get away from that, or you're trying to get away from that with these new technologies.
Yeah, and I think also kind of that dynamic routing, pass you can do in a modern solution, can be done because you got different processing power than what you had in a legacy solution. So dynamic routing wasn't a big thing 20 years ago because you didn't have the processing power to be able to do it. Now you do. So you can do these passes, quicker, faster, and with more data and have a result very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're going a little bit long here, but also from an architecture perspective, you'll hear a lot about control tower, right? I think everyone's probably heard that in the past. But what you're able to do now, instead of having laptops at each location, they're loaded with different constraints, and you really can't control or really understand why some locations might be performing better than others. With Control Tower, you have all your planners in all locations, all on the same instance of the software. You can manage it centrally, and you can also run analytics holistically on that. So that's another big change we see in modern solutions. And then the last thing quickly for scenario planning, this is more what if scenarios. So with all the extra time your planners will have, they can function more as analysts in the company. So they can go in and they can run different scenarios offline, non-production. They could see what their baseline is compared to running a scenario with different vehicle types or different time windows, different visit days. And they can see what those KPIs are. And based on where you want to drive the business, you can then take that information, plug it into the daily solutions, and either drive the changes that you want or get more efficient over time. All right, so cloud-based solutions, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Everyone knows what cloud means, but again, you're moving more from the legacy solutions that were more client-server to almost all cloud-based for more modern solutions. So you have scalability, right? So anytime you have a seasonal peak or something happens where you need more CPU or more RAM, cloud-based solutions can automatically ramp up, which is really nice. Cost effectiveness, although your AWSs and your Azures are not cheap, compared to procuring your own hardware, having headcount to run it, maintain it, change it out. There's a lot of different components that connect with that as well. It is less expensive, and it's just frankly easier. And then accessibility, cloud-based, you're accessing it via a browser. You can access it from anywhere, log on specific username, password. You get user-based constraints. So if you don't want a certain DC to see other DC's information, you can lock that out, which makes it really nice. Yep. And then the last thing we'll talk about here on this slide, real-time visibility. So more modern solutions are able to connect with solutions that you can get real-time data from. So electronic logging devices, mobile EPOD solutions. So you can get GPS pings, you can track in real time. And, having this information for dispatching is essential. Being able to see deliveries progress against the optimized plan, seeing arrivals and departures. You can see, for example, if the second stop on a 5-stop route is late for whatever reason, to ensure the rest of those stops are not going to be late, you can potentially take action to move a lower priority delivery to another day, or you can re-optimize, resequence that whole route to ensure the rest of the stops aren't going to be late. So a lot of things you can do there. And then from the customer side, what the customers expect is a lot different than it used to be. And Scott touched on this a little bit earlier. They want more of that Amazon experience where they can log on to an app. They can see where their delivery's at in real time on a map, where that truck's at. They can get updated ETAs if anything does happen, if something is going to be late, be able to push that out to the customer so they know what to expect, to have people available to unload, things of that nature. And even be able to communicate with the driver if a company wants to allow that. So that's pretty unique and growing in popularity very, very quickly. And then last thing, data-driven insights here. So again, this is just real-time data collection analysis. You can identify any sort of inefficiencies in the business as a whole, optimize overall processes, and then really make more informed decisions to enhance your overall performance.
Yeah, all very key points, Aaron.
All right, so moving on to the next question, what would your advice be, Scott, to someone that's looking to approach a transition like this internally? What recommendations would you make?
Yep, great question. So really understanding your current processes and what are pain points within your current processes. So kind of mapping out your current workflows, who's doing what are we doing? How are things going from A to B to Z? From the time that we have to place orders get placed, that it goes to the warehouse, it goes to the warehouse to get loaded onto the trucks, and goes out the door, the driver taking it to the customers. So understanding what that workflow looks like and trying to find places where there may be inefficiencies within that flow. Gathering feedback, and again, that's gathering feedback from anybody that touches any point in that process. Everybody from the planners, the routers, the warehouse people, right out to the very drivers themselves that are delivering the products to the customers. Gather that feedback and see where there's room for improvement. Really internal alignment is critical as well. As anybody knows, and especially in food service distribution, software that's telling you the best way to do things or optimize things is an integral part of the business. So having a cross-functional team that touches on all the departments, from logistics, operations, warehouse, drivers, cross-functional team to make sure that you remain in alignment about here's what we're going to do and here's why we're going to do it, and let's make sure we map this out correctly and everybody's on board. Understanding what your common goals are. Making sure everybody is aligned with here's what the ultimate goal is as to why we're doing this. Why is this important to us as a business? To continue to get more efficient. to your earlier point, Aaron, hey, if costs are going to continue to go up through inflationary pressures, 2 to 9% over the next 3 years, well, guess what? We've got to find a way to either eke out an efficiency gain in that area, or is the market going to be able to absorb a 9% increase because we do? So defining those common goals, and then communication. Make sure you communicate, transparently within your groups and departments. If there's a hiccup somewhere along the way, call it out, regroup, and make sure that you keep those lines of communication open. Change management, Aaron, if you want to kind of tackle this one, for a minute, and, kind of what have you seen in your experience here?
Yeah, I think some companies, not all, some discount really the importance of change management. I think you really have to think about how you align these projects well before you start them. You have to make sure that you get input from the right groups, because honestly, some of these types of projects can be scary for certain folks in certain departments. So I think getting their input, making sure they feel included, putting a process in place is really, really important when you embark on one of these types of deployments. So, there's very good information out there on how you can do this. But there's also a lot of good companies out there that professionally do engagements like this as well. And I would encourage everybody to look into how you handle that change management process before you start a project. I think it can really affect the outcome in a very positive way. Although sometimes, it doesn't sound like it's needed, and we'll bull our way through it. I think this is really the best practice for companies today, using more modern technology.
Great. And how about, and again, this transition is an opportunity for realignment, and Aaron, again, I think we've all seen and experienced this, is really just, making sure that, one of the team structures we want to have in place, is what we're doing today. Is that what we want to do tomorrow? Do we have the right team members in place? Are they going to be willing to change and adapt? How do we handle that? Going from here's our operating procedures today, that here's our SOPs tomorrow. So making sure we have the right people in place, and then kind of one of those performance metrics. Here's how we were doing before. We are anticipating, expecting that we're going to have X% of efficiency gain or cost savings, whatever that may look like. Make sure you understand what they are as your starting point, and what do you think your success point looks like, to be able to hit metrics that you're looking to align your business on. Make sure you're performing. And then this last one, I know, Aaron, you've seen this as well. Promoting a culture of continuous improvement. Again, what we do today doesn't mean that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to continue to look for ways to improve every day. And maybe you've got an example with maybe one of your customers with some of the things that they may be doing that said, hey, here's what we're doing and what we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, no, I think, it's obviously very important because businesses grow and change all the time, and you have to take that into consideration, and, you have to configure solutions differently to handle different scenarios, right? So, on a quarterly basis, we like to see our customers sit down and talk about, what changes happened and how do we address those, and put together meaningful metrics that you want to measure from quarter to quarter potentially, and see what changes need to happen. But you can't have the mindset of, once I turn this on, I never make a change to it, because you're going to see your efficiencies decline and decline over the years, and that's the last thing you want. But yeah, so got to keep an eye on things. You got to make adjustments as the company makes adjustments.
Yep, for sure.
All right.
Terrific.
So I know we're at time here, but so we got through the 4 topics we wanted to cover here in a bit of depth. We went a little bit long here, but we certainly hope you were able to find some value in the time you just gave us. But Kelly, I'll hand it back to you to wrap things up.
So
Thank you, Erin and Scott, for sharing such valuable insights today. And thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us. We had a couple of questions come through on the registration page, so we will go ahead and answer those. In the meantime, please feel free to add questions in the Q&A box. If we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with an email shortly after the webinar. So the first question that we received was, how do you see companies start the process of evaluating whether or not they need the latest technology versus legacy?
Want me to take that one?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll answer it in the context of ORTEC versus other companies. I don't. Everyone probably does it a little bit differently, but there's we stress a lot of importance on the discovery process, so that the initial couple phone calls to really dig into, what are you doing today? What issues are you having? What are the goals that you have in the future? And bring up best practices that we've seen from other customers, peers in their space, ask questions. And then that really gives us a better understanding of what solution sets might be in scope and what types of solutions. There's multiple types of routing solutions out there, and multiple architectures out there as well. So from there, what we can do is create, a custom demo that's more specific to each company's goals after those discovery sessions. So we're not just putting something generic together that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And then we're also able to do what we call value assessments, where we can take that historical data. We talk about historical data a lot, but we can take that and without going into a lot of detail here, because I know we're at time, but we can create a baseline of what a customer did, and then we can work on what their rules and constraints are to make sure routes are real world executable, run them through optimization, and we can see what black and white savings results are. That way you've got something to put into a business case that you can take and show executives or other folks that might be interested in pushing a project like that forward.
Great, thank you, Aaron. The next question that we had was, what training and support services are provided during the transition?
Yeah, Aaron, you want to tackle that too?
Sure. Yeah, I can take it. This is a quick one. So there's a couple different ways we can provide support. So in training, in the standard implementations, you're going to get training. You're going to get super user training. We'll be able to get folks up to speed that are able to proficiently use the solution, whatever it might be, routing, analytics, so on and so forth. We're not a company that wants you coming back to us for everything. We want to make sure you're self-sufficient. So you'll be trained even on how to create your own dashboards and visualizations with analytics, which is really nice. You also have hypercare support after the go live for a number of weeks, whatever makes sense, to ensure you have someone to call immediately if something does happen. And then after that, we've got ancillary support as well. We've got what we call ORTEC Academy, and we can put together custom training packages, video-based packages. We have the ability to, give access to any type of training really specific to any solution that we offer, where they can go, they can type in a normally asked question on a website, be able to get an answer back very quickly and easily. So there's a lot of different options there as far as what we can do with the Academy to support our customers after the hypercare period as well. So a couple different buckets there.
Great, thank you, Aaron. It looks like we are at time right now. So any questions that we did not get to, we will get back to you shortly. Thank you again for joining us. If you would like to learn more or discuss how these strategies can work for your organization, we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out to Aaron or Scott directly. Their emails are on this slide, and they will get back with you shortly. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.